All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Difficult Conversations by Supply the Why. We are on season 3, episode 3, and as promised, we got a smoker for you tonight. So tonight we're going to be discussing the whole warrior versus guardian mindset in policing, what it is, and should it even exist, and how do we manage it. So I brought in a couple experts in this particular subject. So the first person I'm going to introduce to you is Lieutenant Fred Leland. He is, if you have ever taken any class in Massachusetts, Fred trainers in Massachusetts. He's been in policing for over 30 years. Fred, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Well, the pleasure's all mine. I met Fred. I was actually a student in his class when I was taking in-service classes at the academy. We became friendly, and now we co-instruct at the academy, and it's an honor to have you on and to have you share some of your knowledge with us tonight.
Honored to be here.
So the second person on our panel tonight is a detective, and he's got some military experience. This is Ayman Kafel. Ayman, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? Glad to be on.
All right. So Ayman is also an expert in warrior versus guardian mindset. So Ayman, we just recently met, about a month ago we made our acquaintance, maybe not even?
Yeah, about a month ago. Yep.
All right. So what is your experience with warrior versus guardian mindset, and why is this important to you?
So important to me because to me, warrior and guardian is one and the same in terms of the philosophies behind them. It's just the term or the word warrior has just been so vilified by modern society, by the PC culture, if you want to call it, that they needed to come up with another word for it. Instead guardian. Now you have, across the country, I know of cities and towns that completely got rid of the word warrior out of their curriculum, which is, to me, is no, not good. It's not really giving the warrior mindset the credit is due, because again, like I said, warrior and guardian are one and the same to me.
So on that note, you're kind of new school. You've been on this job for how long?
About 15 years.
15 years. All right. So I'm 15, I'm 16, and Fred, you're over 30, right?
Yes.
So Fred, you've been talking about this subject for years now. So this is new to you. So bring us into kind of like the, lack of a better way to put it, the old school way of looking at warrior versus guardian.
Well, I don't know if there's a whole hell of a lot of difference from what Ayman was saying, but because I believe it. I believe history. History of the warrior goes back to ancient times and beyond. But in policing, it's pretty much been this way since I've been taking it. I mean, I've had all kinds of different training on preparing police officers for those rare occasions where they have to fight. And we're cops. We understand what we do for a living, but we persuade most people to come around to our way of thinking. And it's rare that we actually have to physically tussle with somebody or even at a higher level use deadly force. So when I think about it, I tend to agree with Ayman that they are one and the same. The warrior mindset has always been that of a protector first, a guardian first. That's what cops do. We're peacekeepers. We go out, we protect people, we enforce laws, and most people comply. And when they don't, we persuade them, and we make every effort to persuade them to come around to our way of thinking. If not, and they decide to fight, then a police officer has to fight. But and they have to know how to do it. So you can't take it out of the equation. Protectors have to know how to fight. They have to know how to use physical skills. And then in the United States of America, we have to know how to use firearm skills if we're dealt with a deadly weapon at some point where somebody's life or our own life is put in jeopardy. So I think that's important. But the history of it, it's all gotten lost in this latest hype. All right, the latest hype has demonized the term warrior. I mean, we call football players warriors and athletes warriors, right? But we're not going to call cops warriors when they actually have to fight for a living. I mean, a real fight. I'm not talking about a game fight. And somehow it's got lost. Like the word we use is somehow magically going to stop force from being used or having to be used.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. As a matter of fact, there's been tons of studies, and in the military and in other places. I know the Marine Corps did a big thing with Marine Corps martial arts where they taught their Marines much deeper than when I went through Marine Corps boot camp, much deeper levels now with the Marine Corps martial arts program, in an effort to make them better at self-defense so that they had more confidence when they dealt with hand-to-hand stuff. And it's the same thing with policing. We should be doing that. We should, if we're going to teach guys defensive tactics, which we do.
That's my wheelhouse is defensive
right.
tactics.
And now think about this for just a couple of seconds. If we teach you defensive tactics and you go to a 40, 80-hour school in the academy, and then you do it only for the rest of your life, once a year at in-service for 4 to 8 hours, I mean, you're not going to become Bruce Lee, right? By doing that,
yeah.
right? So we give guys this training, and we prep them, and then they don't get it. They don't continue it in their agencies or anywhere else, unless they're the rare breed that does it on their own.
So Fred, let me bounce to Ayman for a second. So you brought up an interesting point, Fred. You went down a very interesting road earlier that how they've changed this word warrior.
Yeah.
I kind of feel now, let me know if you agree with me or not, Ayman, that I feel like one of the things they did is they kind of subtracted the honor that's associated with being a warrior.
Oh yeah, I mean,
so talk to me about that.
Here's the thing, the warrior mindset. I mean, it's all about honor, integrity, selfless service, courage, and it goes into an even deeper level as in the warrior mindset, where it helps you, the individual, realize that the true enemy is not external forces, but also internal. Whether it's weakness, fear, jealousy, and many other negative traits recognized as an enemy with somebody in a warrior mindset. And one person I always quote and always talk about is Musashi, samurai. He said, if you wish to control others, you must control yourself. So in essence, he's not exactly saying control. He's saying that your internal self, if you're not able to control anger and all that, how do you expect to be able to deal with whatever situation that is lying in front of you? So it is very, to me, guardian comes only when it's necessary as protecting, because you're a guardian, you're protecting. A warrior mindset is not just the external, but it's also the internal stuff that you got going on.
I love it, because the way I look at it, we're kind of on the same road there. Warrior to me is offensive. It's like there's no more talking, there's no more negotiating. Now I got to go on the offensive. And guardian to me is defensive. Just it's like guarding something. It's defensive, and it's more of, you're letting something come to you. You're in a very more relaxed posture until it's the time not to be relaxed. Fred, I can tell you one in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hear where you guys are coming from, but I'm still going to say that they're as a police. I don't really care what we call it to get it out. I call me a cop. That's all you got to call me. Call me a policeman, right? But I need to possess these mentalities because circumstances are so conflicting, because we deal with conflict and violence. All right, and so we have to be prepared to go from one to the other. Now, I love what we're talking about here when we talk about honor and the code. We need it. Now, one of the things I think that we can work on in policing is when we teach this the warrior mindset, if you will, in policing, we usually teach this the physical component of the game. We're not teaching, at least in the blended with warrior stuff, these ethical principles that we're talking about, and they need to be taught. And we also need to understand that conflict unfolds in 3 dimensions. Colonel John Boyd talked about it all the time. He says it doesn't just unfold in the physical, it unfolds in the mental and moral realms as well, or dimensions, he called them. And that's important for us to recognize, because the strategy, operations, or tactics we utilize, whether it's a patrolman on the street or a SWAT team or whatever it might be, or somebody doing an interview technique, detective, whatever it is, we have to keep that in mind, that the strategy, operations, and tactics we utilize impact the adversary, not only the adversary's moral, mental, and physical dimensions, and also the public's, who's that third wheel that's important. They're viewing what we do. In a free society, this this warrior has to have these codes because we live and police a free society, a place where in America, freedom can only be taken from you by a police officer. Isn't that remarkable? The responsibility. So those codes mean everything.
So Fred, can I ask you about the third wheel? So you mentioned that third wheel was society.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that third wheel has gotten huge? It's like a monster truck wheel now. Like even when I first started 16 years ago, like clearly that wheel existed. Like, you know, we're there to serve the public and the public has a voice. But man, has that wheel gotten large, and it seems like it's really starting to drive a lot of what we do. Do you agree with that? And then real quick, and then I'm going to go to Ayman.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it has. I think policing a free society, if you go back to 1829 and Peel's principles, where the people are the police and the police are the people, it's always been a proponent we strive for. All right. And we've had our ups and down roller coaster rides with bad situations, with social justice, even in the, going in the 60s. And now we're getting it again. And we've had a lot of good cops, and we've had bad cops mixed in, corruption, all these things we've had to deal with over the years that we've had high trust levels from the public, that third wheel, and we've had low trust. It's ebbed and flowed. But I think right now it's probably the worst I've ever seen it. All right.
So let me get Ayman on that. Ayman, jump in on this.
So I mean, I agree with Fred with his thoughts on this whole thing and with the way society is. I mean, like you said, 15, 16 years ago, it wasn't like this. You could see it. I mean, it was there. But as the years went on, it got worse and worse and worse. And now we are where we are. And part of it is, I think, I like to also, I think, blame us for it too, as cops.
Put a little more meat on those bones. Keep going, Ayman.
Yeah. So our fault, as in we've kept our methods or whatever. We tried to be kind of a little too quiet about it ourselves. Having the officers who do the job every day. That I always compare it to the 70-30 or 80-20 even, where 80% of police officers shouldn't even be police officers, and the 20% that are actually there, they're doing the real police work, as in not just arrests and traffic and all that. They are the ones that connect with the community. They're part of the community. They are stakeholders in the community. They make themselves stakeholders in the community, where they care about every little thing that happens in their community. So it's very important that not only we deal with the society problems, but we have to deal with our own problems too.
All right, that's fair enough. So 80-20, that's a lot. So you're saying that 80% of police officers shouldn't be police officers? Or is that just...
I think that one is, what I think on that is there are three kinds of people that become officers, I believe. All right, this is something I believe. There are those that it's a family trade. They're great cops. It's been generational. It's a family trade. They're in it forever. Then there's one that is there to get a paycheck. We see them all the time. All right, they're there. They'll do minimal amount of work, but they're there. They'll do everything else just so they get a good paycheck. And the last one is the one that we look at, is that one with that warrior mindset. Like the warrior mindset Fred was saying earlier, where it was more internal, external, just like what me and Fred were saying, but also with the warrior mindset, like that stuff, the internal stuff you need to teach at the academies. Yeah, it's, the tactics and all that stuff is part of it, but there's an even bigger part, which is the internal stuff of the warrior mindset, where that needs to be taught also, where, teaching guys to do all this DT and the firearms and everything. I mean, that's what the police academy is for, but we ignored the internal stuff.
All right, can you just really quick, and then I want to get Fred in on this.
Yeah.
Tell me about, like, when you say internal, talk to me as if I have no idea what you're talking about internal, for those of us that aren't on the job out there.
Yeah. So internal, I mean, again, anger, jealousy, fear, stuff like that, where it we never work on it as in the academy as officers, where we don't test enough for that. Where
So
you
talk about the emotion, like the emotional intelligence. That seems to be the road you're going down, is emotional.
Yeah, the emotional intelligence. Exactly. That's something that I remember going through the academy. It was never really taught. Where actually I learned it from my martial arts training since I was a kid. Those things I learned there, not at the academy, or not being developed as an officer going through the years.
All right, let me get Fred in on this. Now, Fred, I know, is a big emotional intelligence guy, just like, we have a guy, Dr. Obed Magdi, who's huge into emotional intelligence. So, Fred.
Yes, you know what? He's nailed it. And it's true. We don't teach it. That's what I was getting at. We teach the physical game: how to shoot, how to fight, how to handcuff, how to use your OC spray, how to use a taser, all the physical stuff. And then we put the cops on the street and we expect them to be masterful at communication when we're not really teaching. We're getting better at it, and we are. In Massachusetts, we've spent some time doing it. But the emotional intelligence is not just going to school, right? And we're more highly educated than ever, than we've ever been in the history of police. So what the hell's going on, right? Yeah. So it's not just about getting a formal education and a degree. There's got to be learning taking place that develops these skill sets, and they have to be included in these. They have to make sure they bring them into the academies, and they have to be drilled when you get out of the academies and FTO and throughout your career. Yeah. Throughout your career, you're developing them. You're always working on them, and it's huge. To understand that, because that's what gets lost when everything becomes stimulus response, right? When you train stimulus response, which is great, it teaches you how to do whatever skill set it is. But what are you going to do on the street? You're going to do stimulus response. You're going to train. You're going to act like you were trained, and that becomes problematic if there's no thinking going on. We have to observe, orient, decide, and act throughout the encounter so that we get inside the mind of a person we're dealing with, whether they're angry, bad guy, or somebody that's going through an emotional problem. We have to try to get them to come around to our way of thinking. That's what a warrior does. And then if they don't, we may have to wrestle. Like the video clip that we were looking at earlier. It showed a guy trying to talk, trying to rational, and then it goes into a physical altercation. And they're never pretty. They always are ugly looking. Because when I talk to civilians, I tell them, look, if you had an argument at home with your loved one right now, would you want me there at the dinner table watching it? And you know what the usual response is? Dead quiet, right? Nobody wants me there, because even when that happens in their own house, it can be ugly, all right, and nasty. But for some reason, when people see it on a Twitter feed or a YouTube video, when a cop is fighting because he has to fight, everybody gets upset and worked up. And that's a big piece of this too. A big piece of this is because now we got video, right? Yeah. Video's out here and it sees it. Years ago when I got on, there was no video, right? Guys would hear about a fight. The third wheel, the public, right? I say third wheel. They're actually the first wheel. We work for them.
It kind of seems that way. They're driving policies and everything.
They are the first wheel. It's just somehow along the line they get lost. We work for the public. It's as simple as that. And when we go out there, we have to understand that. It's important that they trust us and they understand we're doing things fairly, procedurally just, to coin the new term, right? But we're going out there trying to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And when we do that, we win more people over. But for a long time, and if I'm getting sidetracked, tell me, for a long time, policing sat on their heels and allowed this message to get out here. And it slowly evolved. This didn't just happen after Floyd. It just was big after Floyd. And it didn't just happen after Ferguson. It was going on before Ferguson. It just got bigger and bigger because if you look at guys like Herman Goldstein, who wrote Policing a Free Society back in the 70s, right? And back in the 70s, right? And he talked about police would jump on bandwagons. And I'm going to say this is true. And this is why I fault us as a profession. Is policing jumps on bandwagons when the heat's on, and then they go right back to the status quo when the pan cools down.
You mean the challenges, TikTok challenges?
Yeah, right. Can't just do TikTok challenges. Can't just be doing The thing that drives me crazy than anything is we find kids and we do Snapchat pictures with them, or right. Come on, man. Cops have been talking with kids and dealing with kids, good and bad, since before I got on this job. But now it's like every opportunity to get a pose, we think that's the answer. That's not the answer. We got to do the job right, even when it's ugly.
So I'm gonna jump in right now. That's a good point. So Mike Powell, who's a regular on the show, he says, I think that the warrior and guardian mindsets are not in one and the same, but we need to possess them both. One mindset is what we use when we mingle with the community. The other is to keep us alive when interactions go wrong. All right, so Ayman, I'm going to go to you. Where are you with Mike's comment? I think it's a thoughtful comment.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
So again, he's what's going on is separation of the two, guardian and warrior. Because there, in terms of the way he's looking at it, I think is the warrior is the physical aspect of the job, where you got to go out, protect, keep people alive, stuff like that. And when things get ugly, the warrior needs to come out. Then he is separating guardian, where guardian, you're among the people, protecting the people, protecting also, but you are more involved in the community versus the warrior, where the warrior is the fighter. To me, why I say they're one and the same is because to be a warrior, to have that warrior mindset, is also caring for your own community. Part of that whole internal struggle. I mean, with the warrior mindset, the internal struggle, if you can't handle your own internal stuff, anger, whatever, the emotional intelligence, if you can't deal with that, you're not going to be able to be a guardian, right, for the people, because your emotion is what's driving you more than anything else. Versus,
I like it.
Your mindset, you keep, you work on yourself, you work on the self, you develop yourself to be a better person for society, because that's what society expects of you. As a guy with a badge and, as an officer of a free society, they expect you to be the best that society has to offer. There's a reason why you got this job. There's a reason why you're out there in uniform. The public sees you as again, the top percent of that town or wherever you serve. That's the way it should be. So back to what Mike said, to me, warrior and guardian are the same people.
Just different levels of the same person, yes?
Exactly, just different levels.
All right, so one thing I want to throw in here before we go to Fred is I got to address the whole thing about the public, because yes, we do work for the public and they do drive a lot of what we do. However, in my opinion, as someone who's been in this game for a little while now, there has to be an educational component. If they're going to be driving policies and they're going to be making decisions based on something, let's face it, that 90% of them have never done before, there has to be an educational component. Like, you can't tell me what weapons or tools I should be using if you can't give me a realistic example as to how you would have stopped the problem.
Yeah.
Like, don't throw out buzzwords. I don't want to hear about de-escalation, because the one thing about de-escalation is a dance. Fred and I spoke about this the other day when he came to visit me. It's a dance. It takes two people to de-escalate. Like, I can come in with all the catchphrases and cool terms I want. If you're not trying to de-escalate, there's nothing I can do to de-escalate that situation.
Yeah.
All right. So, Fred, please jump in on this.
Yeah, I agree with you. The people do when I say that, in other words, the people have to respect police and the leadership we have. Right. When I say they drive what we do, I'm not so sure they need to be. Matter of fact, part of the problem is probably with the term de-escalation is come from some of these civilian review boards who don't know anything about policing, right? Because it is a dance. It's if you want to talk about it professionally, it's called the strategic game of interaction. Interact with something, there's a give and take to it. I'm a policeman. I'm in a uniform. There's a threat of force there automatically. There's a threat, whether it's handcuffs, you comply with my verbal commands, or you take it to a level where you want to physically fight, or if you want to try to harm somebody or me, then it goes to a deadly force level. All right. So there's an actual give and take, just like somebody at home talking to a family member in an argument. There's a give and take to that conversation, and based on how you both communicate with each other, you either resolve it peacefully and you go to sleep peacefully at night, or you don't. All right, and it gets uglier. So I think what happens with you got to trust the people you put in power of police chiefs and etc. And that's another trend that's a problem here. We put people in charge of a profession, policing, and all of a sudden, because I watch Blue Bloods or whatever's on television or CSI, I'm an expert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I looked at it on YouTube. I'm an expert. You're not an expert, all right? Police takes a lot of time to develop their craft and to become a professional. It doesn't happen from watching television or YouTube videos.
So what do you
all
say,
right?
Fred? If I find evidence of the crime scene, I can't send it out to the crime lab and get it back?
You know what I always like to use the term, right? You can't just drop my DNA on your cell phone and there's not an app for
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
A lot of people think that's how it works.
Well,
and they do.
Are involved in these decisions.
Well, I've gone to I've gone to grand juries where I've been asked, based on video surveillance, where I've been asked by the jurors, could you have zoomed that in and cleared that picture? And this is it's like, no, that's, we call that in policing a CSI effect, right? All these police shows that solve crimes in 20 minutes, or less. It doesn't work that way. So I had to explain to the jury that's not real. I can't do that. That's the video that I was given.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely bananas. So I think, gentlemen, this is the perfect time just to hit the chat really quick. Mark says that Sir Robert Peel stated this in the mid-1800s. He's referring back to what you were talking about earlier, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a thank you for your service from Detective Sergeant Michael Powell, who is again, big friend of the show, and he's one of the favorite people I have on. So I think this is a perfect time to go to that video. All right, so let's check out the video, and we're going to discuss this. You're going to see Warrior, you're going to see some Guardian, and most importantly, you're going to see a blend. So we're going to talk about what happens when. Stay with us on this. All right, everybody stand by here.
It's my phone.
Okay. All right.
Bro.
Okay.
I'm legit.
Okay.
Yeah, bro.
Do you have anything illegal in your pockets? That's what I'm asking.
No.
Can I search your pockets?
No, sir.
Okay.
I don't, sir. I don't have anything. Stop. Come on, man. Stop. Give me a break, man. Come on, man. Get up, dude. No, stop, bro. God damn it. 416. God damn it. Hey, help me, dog. Help me. Oh, wow. What the? Stop resisting! Stop resisting! I got it! Stop resisting! Stop resisting! I'm homeless! Okay. Roll over. I'm homeless, man.
All right, I got one arm.
Okay. Hey,
The other
you
one's
got
under
it. You got it. I'm okay. My left arm just locates both.
All right.
I'm homeless, bro. Look
Okay,
at
that's fine.
I'm homeless, dog. I'm homeless. Bro.
All right. So that's one of my favorite training videos to watch because it shows a couple different levels. It shows at first, in my opinion, again, I'll start here and then I'll bounce to you, gentlemen. In my opinion, it showed a Guardian. So even at first, when he's searching this gentleman and he goes to hook him up, he's gentle, he's being respectful, his tone of voice is proper, he's not yelling, he's not demeaning this person. Guardian all day long. Then The subject decides to take it to another level when as soon as he hears the click, click, click of the handcuffs, as we all know from our training, that's what people tend to fight the most. And he decides to run. He gets tackled. And instead of giving up when he gets tackled, saying, all right, well, I tried to run, it didn't work. What does he do? He decides to fight. Fight ensues. The officer's trying to get the upper hand. He's talking to him. He even says, hey, give me a break, will you? To the guy. Like, you know, he's trying to give the subject a chance to withdraw and just say, you know what, I made a mistake. I'll give up. Then he rolls the officer over. And now he's on top of the officer. There's no reason to do that unless you plan on being offensive at some point. And then the fight ensues, and then you see what happens there. So, Ayman, what were your thoughts on that video, and how does that play into your whole warrior versus guardian mindset brand?
So, I mean, great video. I agree with you. It's actually a phenomenal job that the officer did, and you can also tell he trains on his own. All right, the movements, the tactics he was using, that's extra of what he does on top of what the job gives him or trains him in. So here's the thing: inevitably, a police officer is going to get into a fight, you know, at some point in their career. Like I said, you know, like it's a rare thing, but it happens, and when it happens, you know, fighting to somebody who has that warrior mindset is a last resort. You can tell from the officer's actions when the handcuffs were coming on, even when the suspect had the officer in a headlock, he still did not go, you know, any extra. He was trying to talk to him, plead with him, right? He was pleading with him. You can hear it from the cop. So when someone with the warrior mindset is put in a spot where they have to act, you know, like fighting, he ended up being very effective at fighting, more than what the suspect thought. I mean, he was doing some very good moves in getting out of that headlock, and then the way he was, you know, pushing his forearm against his head and using the taser, he was doing great things also to minimal damage to the suspect to effect an arrest. And even after the arrest, the officer was calm. That's warrior mindset right there. Okay, that's a clear example to me of what somebody with a warrior mindset is like. Not just the physical, but also the mental.
I agree, because, you know, you touched upon it earlier, and then, you know, I put a name on it with emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
In order to be a warrior and a guardian, you have to have a high level of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, and based off my training experience, the more you train, the more confidence you have. The more confidence you have, the more options you have. The more options you have, the more it allows you to take the time to access your emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
If I got one tool in my toolbox and it's a hammer, and I'm on a job and it doesn't call for a hammer, I'm out of options, right?
Oh yeah, that's 100% true. And again, like I said with the officer, I mean, such great movements on the ground, the way he was moving, the way he kept talking to the suspect when he had him in the headlock. Finally, the officer decided, okay, enough's enough. You know, now I need to act. And that's when you see the switch, you know, from that mental aspect of the warrior mindset into the physical aspect. And he did so quick too. It wasn't a long drawn out fight. He had control of the subject pretty much almost the entire time. And what he was doing is, you can tell the officer was also using strategy, how to get him around, all right, he got me here, now I got to do this. You can tell the officer's thinking of different ways of moving around because he's so confident in his skills, like you said, because of training that he does on his own to develop himself as both a warrior and a police officer with the warrior mindset, that he was very confident the whole time. He wasn't yelling for help. He wasn't, you know, he knew he had control of the situation.
I agree. You know, he definitely, and again, you know, like, he definitely had some training.
Yeah.
But it's also important for people to realize, like, that wasn't some high level black belt either. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't doing any crazy techniques. He was just a guy who clearly knew the value of putting himself in some bad situations in a training environment.
Yeah.
So when the real thing came along, he could access that from his mind. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's like that saying, like, your body can't go anywhere your mind hasn't already been.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was a perfect example of that in that video. So let me hit that real quick.
A great quote from Mike Tyson. He said, I was listening the other day, a great quote that he said is, your mind, your body follows your mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's how powerful to him the mind is.
Exactly. If your mind's ever been, I thought when you said Mike Tyson, you were going to go to one of my favorite quotes of his is, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Well, yeah, that's the other one. That's the other one. Yeah.
So Mike says that this is a great example of the transition from guardian to warrior. The guardian is what we do most of the time, serving the general public. The warrior is what we do, what we have to do to stay alive. All right. So Mike's doubling down on that. Yeah. So Bob says, all right, this is such a difficult topic. In today's society, you have to be a warriorian. All right. So half warrior and half guardian, because there is such a lack of respect for police, which is very unfortunate. A police officer today has to expect the unexpected when coming up on a scene. The days of Adam 12 are gone. So Adam 12, I believe that's even before my time, and I'm in my mid-40s. I believe that's from Car 54, maybe.
Yeah.
It's from one of those shows that was like black and white-ish. So we're going back a little ways. Ajay says, as a POC, I assume that's a police officer candidate. I have been spoon-fed the illusion that being a police officer is an easy job, that it is easy, and any cop that uses excessive force on a POC is person of color. Sorry,
color. Okay.
All right. So as a person of color is racist, which is false. Over the past couple months, I have learned to appreciate police officers more because they're here to protect and serve our communities, and I'm even inspired to become an officer.
Awesome.
Amen, Ajay. We need more people to see the whole picture, like what you're doing there.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So Ayman, so we talked a little bit about that. So talk to me about maybe some experiences you used where you've had to apply some of your emotional intelligence and make these transitions.
Yeah. So actually, the situation I was involved in, it's kind of one of those that always comes up that I think about, is where I put myself. Well, it was a warrant arrest that I went to serve, and it was an investigation I was conducting, and I kind of made an error in meeting with the suspect in an office where I did not have room to maneuver, really. So I realized that, and he knew it, and you can tell he was sizing up the situation, and clenched fist and all of that. And what I ended up doing as I'm talking to him, and this was a guy, I mean, he must have been 6'3", 6'4", about 250, solid, big guy. So what I ended up doing is I ended up searching the, moving around a little bit to the other side of the office, because that's where the door was. That's where my exit was. So my back was to a wall, and walls all around me. I had no exit. And I knew it as soon as he came in. I'm like, oh crap, I should have been on the other side. So I kept talking him down, and you can tell he was trying to decide whether he wants to fight me or run or whatever. You can tell there was something going on in his head. And as I was walking around the desk, I kept telling him, hey, don't worry about it, man. This thing, I mean, it's a warrant arrest, but listen, you'll have your day in court. You'll do what you got to do. And that's all we're going to, deal with it. So he ended up, as he was walking around, now his back was to the wall, my back was to the door. He realized it, and he came down from whatever he wanted to do and went peacefully. So it was one of those, like I call it a psychological ambush. Like he was thinking of doing stuff, and he was formulating in his brain what he was about to do. And as soon as he realized what position I put him in, he stopped.
I love it. So Fred, welcome back.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what happened. Somehow I dropped out, but I'm back.
Hey, we're happy to have you, brother. So here's the question on the table right now. So can you give an example of a time when you've been on the job where you've had to transition maybe from warrior to guardian or guardian to warrior, and you've had to apply some level of emotional intelligence?
Yeah. I mean, I just love that example that Ayman just gave with his scenario. I was watching that. and that's a great example of it. It's what we call, instead of just reacting, we can't just react to everything. All right. Now something spontaneous like that video we just saw, then you react to that. But what I love it, there's a favorite quote of mine from Colonel John Boyd, who studied patterns of conflict and how to deal with violence and in warfare, and I've kind of been utilizing his ideas and applying them to policing for years, because it's all about maneuver and trying to win in the moral component where you don't have to fight. All right, which goes back the days of Sun Tzu and the art of war. All right, but what Ayman was talking about in his scenario is called he shaped the circumstances. Right, he didn't just react; he maneuvered. He put himself in positions where the other fella had to put himself. He put himself in a bad position, which gave him an advantage, and he was smart enough to see it and come around to Ayman's way of thinking, and it ended without a fight. Right, which is the ultimate goal. We want to win without fighting, if at all possible, and that's what a warrior looks for. Right, win without fighting. All right, if at all possible. That's the acme of skill, as the way Sun Tzu put it, the art of war 2,500 years ago. Not new age fluffy stuff, but old school warfare stuff.
Yeah.
So,
right?
Fred, how about a real life example that you've applied this so in the field?
Hell, man, there's so many of them over the years.
Pick
I'm
one.
trying to think. You got to remember, I've been retired now 4 years, so I'm trying to remember back with some of the ones I dealt with. Yeah, there's been. I'll give you one.
Please.
I was a lieutenant. I worked days, and most of my career was 4 to 12. But I was on days this particular day, and I ended up doing my admin work. Right, so I'm going to give you all my dirty laundry. So I got my administrative holster on, and I decide at lunchtime I'm going to go get a protein bar up at GNC at the mall. So I walk up to the mall, ride up to the mall, get out, go into GNC, and on the way out, as luck would have it, there's somebody acting up, right? And I walk over, and he's high, intoxicated, in combination high on drugs. And as soon as I start to talk to the guy, he gives my gun a glance. And as soon as he glances at it, I go, oh, hell, I don't have my safety gear on. I got my admin holster on.
Really quick, folks,
right.
If you're not familiar, an admin holster is one that it's basically just a snap.
That's it.
It's anybody can, like a 3-year-old could come take a gun out of an admin holster. So that's important. That's the reason behind that. So go ahead, Fred. I just want to
explain. Yeah. So anyway, so now I have to work my verbal judo, for lack of a better word, communicate. You have to have social skills in this business of being a warrior, right? You got to know how to communicate with people, listen, and manipulate the circumstances and reshape them. So it becomes a conversation where we end up going outside. He walks out with me, and of course, as he's walking, I get on the radio quick and get for backup to roll my direction. And strategically, I waited until I could see backup coming into the mall lot before I moved in to put cuffs on him. And it didn't turn into a fight, but I was very worried that it was going to turn into a fight. And he was a big, muscly, strong dude, and I was worried about that. And just so people are listening, no, cops do worry. When you look at somebody who's big, they can put all that bravado into your brain all you want, but there are people out there who are bigger than stronger than you are. So you have to be prepared for that. So that's an example of using a combination of things in an effort to prevent a fight, which I think is what most of us strive for every day, is to do that. Now, if you have to fight in those circumstances, you get a set of circumstances where you actually have to fight. They're no fun, and I've had those too, where they go bad or they happen too quick, right? A domestic violence scene where something turns into as soon as you walk in the door, it's violent and people are threatening, and they come right at you. When you go into people's houses, I don't think people that don't do this for a living realize how dangerous that can be.
Oh, it's the ultimate away game.
Because
the away game.
Yeah. Because
disadvantage and going into someone else's house.
Oh, it is. It's huge. There's so many disadvantages involved and so dangerous. People's emotions are high, and they can change quickly. But
so, can I just jump in real quick? My favorite part of your story is how you bought time. No rush. No rush. That's something you learn with time on the job. Because I'm not going to speak for you two, but I know me, and I got on this job older. Like I was 28 when I started in law enforcement, and I still, when I got out of the academy, I'm like, it has to happen quick. Everything's got to be now. You know what I mean? Arrestable offense. I got to it's like a speed competition. See how quickly I can get handcuffs on you. Not the case. Yeah. Not the case at all. Like you just said, like time was on your side.
Do you know what that is?
In my mind that somebody's going to arrest somebody. That I'm going to arrest somebody. But I don't have to let them know if I'm waiting for backup and things like that. You take time. Go ahead, Fred.
You got to manipulate time. You're onto a hot topic. In policing, we're taught to control the circumstances. I'm trying to take that word out of my vocabulary, quite frankly, when I train guys. And I say that in a sense. There are times, spontaneous things that happens where you have to control. But that word control gives us this idea that we got to do it now. Right this second, it's got to be done, right? And that causes us to react all too often when we should be slowing down and reshaping circumstances, because that's important. And I think I started to give you that quote earlier from Boyd. He said, don't just be a reactor. Notice what I said. Don't just be. I didn't say never be a reactor because there's a time for it. But don't just be a reactor. Be a shaper too. That's huge when it comes to tactics, because it's just what we're talking about. Stall for time. Don't make the car stop unless you're ready to make it, right? Don't engage, or if you do engage and you're already lured in, stall, develop it as long as you can. If things unfold, like with this guy in that video, he was dealing with him nice, trying to be a good guy, trying to talk to him decently, and all of a sudden he took off running, and he had to go into that react mode and take him down and struggle with him. And guess what? When you struggle, it don't look nice. It don't look pretty. Because it's not pretty, right? But understanding tactics tactics is everything from how we communicate, how we listen, to gunplay and DT, defensive it's everything combined. Any method, any tools we can utilize to manipulate the circumstances to our advantage so that we win, because we're out enforcing the laws, we're protecting the public, right? We want to get people to come around to our way of thinking and end nice and peacefully, which most of them do. Yeah, most of them do.
Fred, let me jump to Ayman. Because Ayman, I can tell he's getting the pace. Like he wants in.
Got it.
Fred's got a shout out there.
Sorry, man.
Well, I've gone to Fred's classes myself in service almost my entire career. So when Fred gets going, it's like, all the great points that are coming up. But it's I agree 100% is the stalling of time and like I think I noticed a comment of something is that patience, with experience comes patience, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, when I graduated the academy, I was 28 also. I was 28 years old when I graduated. I was like you. I was like, oh, I have to make the arrest. I have to do this. Have to do that. But then I started to notice as time went on that instead of control, like you said, Fred, that word control. I could shape a situation to my advantage all the time and take my time doing it. Where I could, where I could walk into a disorderly house, if you want to call it, and shape it to the way I want it. They may not know what I'm doing, but I'm moving pieces around. Right. So I mean, that's a great point, Fred, is I think, a while back we were talking and I told you that one of our mutual friends told me, well, how do you guys do what you do, when you're going to chaos and, a car accident and all this. And I said, well, we control the chaos. So Fred said, well, change control with reshape. We reshape that chaos. I was like, you know what? Great point. Because when we show up to an accident scene or any type of scene, that's what we're doing. We're reshaping to make it to fix whatever is going on.
I love it. Go ahead, Fred.
What that gives you is you're using strategy and tactics. You're not just high diddle straight up the middle. The devil be damned. I'm the police. Here I am, and something magical is going to happen because I got a gun and a badge. It doesn't work that way.
There's actually Dr. Seuss. I love it.
Yeah, there's actually a strategic mindset. You mentioned earlier options. How we don't teach options. We usually teach in policing. We teach school solutions. We need to be teaching options. Let these people figure out how to frame and solve problems on their own instead of us telling these young cops what to do. Teach them how to think and do. It makes all the difference in the world because now they're learning how to make sense of circumstances. They're learning how to frame and solve problems in context with what actually is happening because they're all different. You can have a domestic today, one tomorrow, one the next day. They're all a domestic, but they all got their different novelties.
Yeah.
All little things that are different in them that we have to be able to adapt to and adjust to. One you go to, we've had cops killed responding to a domestic 2 hours prior and resolving it peacefully, only to get called back, roll up on it the same exact way they rolled up on it, and get ambushed in the driveway. That's happened in my 30 years. I've lost count of how many times things like that have happened.
Yeah.
Right. You can go to the same guy's house for years without incident, right? Dealing with them drinking or whatever it might be, PCing them. And then all of a sudden, years later, on this 100th time you've been there, it turns bad because he's not going this time. Right.
Yeah.
So we have to be prepared for things, and we have to start developing. If we want warriors, and I agree with everything we've talked about. I think Mike who mentioned and doubled down on his idea is on the same page with us. He's there. What we're saying is, when we say it's one the same, it's one man. That warrior and that guardian's in me, or in you, right? And we have to be able to go to deal with the public in that decent way. Even the guy we're patting down, like in that video, deal with him with a guardian mindset until he decides he wants to escalate it.
Yeah.
Then we got to shift gears into that warrior mode where we have to learn how to fight, but and know how to fight, I should say. And I think that's crucial. But we don't teach this we don't teach enough of this to rookie cops. No. The tactical science of this game.
It takes time. It takes time to develop that.
It does.
So, Ayman, let me jump to you real quick.
Yep.
So, believe it or not, fellas, we're down to about under 8 minutes left.
Jeez.
All right, it's full by.
That went quick.
Yeah.
So, 60 seconds. Can you just respond to Fred?
Well, again, Fred, like, from day one, ever since I went to your classes, I agreed with you 100% with the way, reshaping and fixing and doing all this stuff. And it brings me back to thinking on how to develop officers who are able to think. It brings me back thinking about in the Army, doing those leadership courses where you get, you get a 2x4 and a bucket full of sand, and you got to find a way to go across a lake, and you and your team have to figure it out. And that develops that ability to think outside the box, not the traditional, let me build a bridge and go across. No, they make it a lot harder. All right. Sometimes you got to find a way to rest on a rope, and you got to rope your way around and move. But again, you're reshaping the circumstance to benefit you. That end result.
I love it. So really quick, Fred, what projects are you working on? What do you got cooking? What's new for you with the instruction world?
Well, instruction, we just wrapped up doing Zoom. That was new. Now you got me on, what is this called? FaceTime Live or whatever it is?
Facebook Live.
Facebook, yeah, Facebook Live, whatever the hell it is. Zoom, we did Zoom for in-service this year because of COVID. I just finished up a week-long sergeant's class out in Southbridge, Massachusetts, out in that facility the MPTC has out there. It was the first time I was ever there. It was beautiful. It was inside a hotel. Believe it or not, I don't want to get everybody watching upset, especially the cops. They actually gave us coffee and Danish in the morning and fed us in the afternoon. Oh, yeah, I'm telling you. And then this week I'm going to be down in Bourne doing a sergeant's class, and next week in Randolph, but they're moving, so I'm not exactly sure where we're going to be. The academy in Randolph's moving to, it's in Randolph still, but another location.
Yeah, they're moving not about a mile away from where they are now.
Yeah, it's not too far, I guess.
So you got a lot of training is what you're doing. Any personal projects you want to tell us about in the next 30 seconds ago? So I can go to Ayman.
Personal?
Yeah,
personal. I'm just I'm trying to stay healthy. I'm retired. I'm trying to stay healthy and happy, strong, right? Keeping busy walking. I was in the woods for 2 hours today. This is what you do when you're retired, man. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
trying to keep my wife happy.
good luck. When
She's-
you find out the
uh-oh.
secret of that one, let us know. We'll make billions together.
No, she's looking at me across the room. I might have to reshape the circumstance here now. Oh, shit.
And on that
boy.
note, Ayman, what do you got? Tell us about what you got. You got a hot new podcast coming out, right?
Yeah, so we're 3 episodes in. It's doing really good. The podcast is called Project Sapient. It's basically talking about issues of law enforcement. We talk about veteran issues. We talk about a lot of things, man. It's been actually really great experience with all the responses I've been getting from Leos across the country. It's amazing to see how, where it goes and how it touches. So it's the podcast is called Project Sapient, and I'm hoping in another year or so to turn it into a training program about the warrior mindset and to really get that out there to the law enforcement community and kind of win back the hearts and minds of the public.
All right, and you want to accomplish that like through educating the public, or just kind of giving them a peek behind the curtain. Like what?
So for now, it's going to be a peek behind the curtain with the podcast. I'm starting it off as a podcast to kind of set the stage, and then I'm going to go out there where I'm going to actually make it educational for the public and for police officers. I want both. I want to bridge that gap that grew over the 15, 20 plus years that has been slowly growing. So I want to bridge that gap and bring it back.
I love it. I love the concept. It sounds familiar. I don't know.
Yes. And if I could say something quick for both of you guys, what you're doing is for 30 plus, going on 40 years, if you want to really get to the truth of it. That's how long I've been around. But the reality is what you guys are doing is fantastic, because you're educating cops, but you're educating the public, and we need both educated on this stuff. And the way you're doing, I've listened to you, I follow you both, I share your information because it's good and it's needed, and you guys should be applauded for what you're doing out there. As far as I'm concerned, it's good stuff, and I love it. And anybody listening should follow both you guys now. And I know, Ayman, you're new. You got 3 episodes? I listened to all 3 of them. They're fantastic.
Yeah, 2 more coming out. So we're still
Supply the Why. I even got my shirt.
Oh, you look good, Fred. You look
yes,
real
right.
good.
And you guys are doing great. This is stuff we need, man. We can't be hiding and keeping things secret forever in the profession. There's some things, techniques and things we can't tell, but we do need to educate the public. I mean, because they do have a say in what we do, and if they're uneducated, they're going to be making uneducated decisions that we might have to deal with, like we're seeing now. So it behooves us to have guys like you out there doing it. It takes a lot of courage to do it.
I appreciate it, Fred. No, thank you.
Fred, I appreciate it. It means I can't tell you how much it means to come from a guy. This is the part of the show where I get a little sappy. A guy that I looked up to, a guy that when you were in front of the class, I'm like, this is a guy that loves what he's doing. This is a guy that's passionate about teaching cops.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that I want to do what this guy's doing. So guys like yourself, Fred, you've motivated me to become an instructor also for the MPTC, which is the Municipal Police Training Council. For those of you that don't know that, that's the main governing body for teaching and educating police officers in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, it took me a while to do it, but now that I teach a couple subjects for them, and I love it. I love the whole process behind it. And part of the Supply the Why, what we're doing here is I said, why not take some of that and bring it to the general public? And let's see if we can all get on the same page with some of this stuff, or at the very least, maybe I can supply the why behind the mindset that we have as to why we train, how we train, and what our goals are with the training. So that's kind of where I was going with Supply the Why. So we're about a minute left, folks. So again, I want to thank everybody for checking out the show. Check out Project Sapient. It's a hot podcast. It's saved as one of my favorites. So please check it out. Supply the Why. We're on Facebook, YouTube. If you have people that are out on Facebook, check out our YouTube channel. Share the link from there. We're going to be on LinkedIn soon. I'm on Instagram. We're on Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify podcast if you're in the car and you want to listen. What I'm telling people now is They're like, Dean, how can I support this? Do this. Don't argue with your people. It's the holiday time. Don't argue with your people about police use of force or race relations. Send them a copy of one of the episodes from here. Let me make the case for you. Take the emotion out of the whole situation, and let them listen to us and the guests that I have on. I promise you'll be better for it, and I guarantee you that people will have a lot of aha moments by listening to shows like this one, like we had tonight. So we're out of time, folks. Thank you again. Supply the Y. Check it out. We also have hot new bracelets, 3 for $10. Hit me up.
Wow.
Get your Supply the Y gear. Happy holidays, everybody. This is going to be the last episode until we come back after the holidays. So have a happy and safe holiday season, and we'll see you soon. # Supply the Y.
Bye, guys. See ya.